Just got called away for a second. Well, I heard Juliet Charlie Foxtrot. So I'm assuming that's Golf Mike 8 Juliet Charlie Foxtrot. But I'd better just check first before I continue. Just go ahead again. G4AXP.
Yeah, G4AXP M0 JCF. You got it totally wrong, but totally wrong side of the country. I'm in Kent, but yeah, it's Mike 0 Juliet Charlie Foxtrot. It's Mark in Sidcup in Kent. G4AXP M0 JCF.
Okay, Mark. M0 JCF. G4AXP. Okay, thanks for the call. And I was just being called away for a second when you called, so I didn't get the call sign. And I got a friend up there in Scotland who I natter to from time to time, who of course is GM8 JCF Peter. So I could be excused having only heard the suffix of the call sign as I was leaving the room. So there we go. Anyway, good afternoon to you. I think you said you're in Sidcup. And I have a feeling we've worked before, but I can't remember. Anyway, nice signal on the call. Don't know how the band is yet, so I've only just come in here. It's been a nice day here. Mainly sunny, although it's starting to cloud over a little bit now from the west. My name is Gerald, Golf Echo Romeo Alpha Lima Delta, and location here is in Warwickshire, near to the town of Nuneaton. Give you a report when I've seen a bit more of the signal, but it's sounding okay. Mike 0, Juliet Charlie Fox, G4AXP.
Yeah, G4AXP M0 JCF returning. No problem whatsoever, Gerald, only yanking your chain. Yeah, we have worked before. We've worked 60 metres and 40 metres, believe it or not. But the last time we worked 60 metres was getting on for 5 years ago. It was the 17th of May of 2021. And then the last time we worked on 40 metres was in the 7th of May 2024. So I think I'm just looking now to see what my notes say. You replied to my CQ 60 metre call, and we had heavy lightning noise crashing around, which doesn't surprise me with this band. Yeah, so that was using now. I can't really see what was my note say of that. No, it just says we had a good ragchew. It doesn't say what radio I was using or anything. And the next time on 40 metres, I was using a Yaesu FT-757 GX and a 90-foot random wire. I think quite possibly on 60 metres back then I was using a TS590S, but I could have been using any old rubbish either side of that. Today it's the IC-7300. Putting out just under 100 watts just to be on the safe side, and the antenna's just a random long wire. It's 90 feet long, about 20-25 feet above the ground, and you're 5 and 9 plus to me. 60 metres is always noisier than 40 metres, but probably not as noisy as 80. So that's the story, mate. Back to you, but it's sounding good. G4AXP M0 JCF.
Yeah, okay there, Mark. M0 JCF G4AXP, yeah, all okay. A nice signal, sort of at least 10 dBs over S9 so on average, so quite steady. Conditions over the last week or three have been a bit shabby, but this band always tends to come into its best sort of this time of the afternoon. And then the nasty habit of folding completely about an hour or so after dark at this time of year. Not always, but it has done and has been doing most evenings when I come in here. It's all but gone. But there we are. Okay, on the setup there, that's sounding good. I'm using a Fox Tango DX10 and a half-wave dipole at about 35 feet. So that's the setup of this end, Mark. Just looking at your QRZ page just to try and get a measure of what's going on at your end, and You've got quite a bit of clobbered there by the look of things. Yeah, a whole bunch of KW2000s and KW Atlanta. Oh boy, I used to love that Atlanta back in the day. Always wished I had one. What's that? Oh, KW1000 linear, is it? Yeah. Yeah, a lot of nice stuff. AR-88 Ediston, homebrew stuff. Yeah, so you're obviously being pushed out of the shack at your age with all this stuff you got. Oh boy, I remember the old the Kodar 825 so well. They used to be as cheap as chips back in the day when they first came out. And I think they were about 15 quid. You'd be lucky to pick one up now second hand for 100 quid. Yeah, I noticed as well you've got the USDX, and I bought a USDX about 6 months ago. I saw it on AliExpress for a ridiculous price. I can't remember what it was now, about 40 quid I think. And I thought I'll just buy it just to see what it is. I had a look around on the internet first and sort of had a bit of a bone up on what it was all about. So yeah, it's okay, but oh my God, the modulation's dreadful. And as I read on these things, it's pretty much the same across the board. It's really too bad to live with, but apart from that, it's compact. The receiver's quite good. It's got an internal battery which never seems to run out. It's good on CW, and I haven't really used it to any great extent, but I could see it could serve a reasonable purpose if only the sideband could be made better. It just sounded to be quite fluffy and distorted at times. But you probably know a bit more about it than me, Mark. Mike 0, Juliet, Charlie Fox, G4AXP.
Yeah, G4AXP M0 JCF. Well, to be honest, my QRZ page needs a complete revamp. As you can imagine, I cycle through a hell of a lot of gear, and most of the KW stuff's gone now. The KW 2000s, I had every single model, and I had a couple of each one, right from the 2000, the 2000 that was in the G line case. I had the 2000 Duck Egg, 2000A, the B, the E. I had several of them, several Atlantas. I've had Vespers. I had a couple of Vespers. And so all I've got left of the KW line at the moment is the 1000 amplifier, which I need to replace a few capacitors and a few resistors in it. Other than that, I've replaced one of the bulbs in it, one of the valves. One of them was gassy, and it kept on flashing over and blowing the fuse. So I replaced that. Luckily, I picked up two of them for 60 quid. And one of them had no transformer, so that become a spares one, and the other one I just made good out of the one that was used for spares. It needs a bit more work. Micro SDX, I've had quite a few of those, and they do take some setting up. They really aren't plug and play, and once you got them set up though, they're not too bad for what they are. For the money that you pay, they really are quite remarkable radios, with the features that's on them, but they do need some setting up. I don't have one at the moment, and in fact my club, the Cray Valley Radio Society, we had a group buy of the true SDX kit, and that was it's got to be 3 years ago now. I actually bought two of them and built them into tobacco tins, really old school stuff, and they worked really well as well. In fact, I used one of them on 60 meters, the old tobacco tin radio. Used it on 60 metres with about 3 watts and worked a GM station, a Scottish station. So, you know, obviously the antenna come into play and that there, you know, you can work any of these lower bands QRP if you can find a spare bit of frequency that you're not being trampled on by Europeans. But yeah, you know, for what they are, they were good. I mean, we really didn't pay a lot of money at all. I think about 25 quid for the true SDX, 25 quid, but you had to build your own case and that. I think one of the club members was building or making 3D printed cases. But as I say, I went old school. I build everything into tobacco tins, just about everything I build. The AR-88, well, I've got 2 of those at the moment, both a bit sick, so they need some work. I've still got some TS830Ss, an FT101E at the moment, which I was using this morning. And what else? Oh, the Eddistone's gone. Do you know, I wish I hadn't got rid of that now. I only got rid of that earlier this year, only because, you know, the size of all these boat anchors, I needed space. And likewise, I had an HRO, which I got rid of just recently with the full coil pack. So I had all 6 coil packs in the government issue wooden boxes, you know. But that come via a ZS6 from South Africa back in the 1950s when he came to England in the 1950s, and it sat there in his garage until he passed away, and then his son moved it on to me some time ago. I think it was last year, and I know it's 1959 was the last time it was used because it was still stuffed with newspapers for transport when they were South African newspapers, 1959. So yeah, it gave me a good idea of the age. So yeah, lots of old gear, but it cycles round, Gerald, you know, it goes round in a big circle, and consequently I got fed up with updating the QRZ page. So yeah, a little bit out of date, and I really should address that at some point, because people like yourself come along, you take a lot of interest, you start asking me about it, and then I have to cheekily say, you know, no, I haven't got it, I haven't got it, I haven't got it, it's all gone. But you know, it's all been replaced with something else. You know, I replace rubbish with rubbish. I'm a bit of a magpie for it. And as to being forced out of the garage, yeah, it happens sometimes, but it was the same when I had motorbikes, and at one point I had too many motorbikes in the garage, and I'd have to wheel half a dozen of the buggers out into the driveway just to get to the one that I wanted to look at, let alone work on. So that was the story, Gerald. G4AXPM0JCF.
About 4 watts. What the hell is it called? USDX, that's it. This is the USDX. So just to give you a quick burst on it, just to see what you thought. I mean, if you want to pay for it, it's okay. And you're capable of making a communication with it, but it's a bit annoying. I've gone through setting up on this thing, crawling up the wall, and that's about as good as I can get it. You're covering me okay, I'll stick that to the other radio. But it'd be interesting to see just what input you've got, Mark. Mike 02 Charlie Fox, G4AXP.
Yeah, G4AXPM0JCF. Well, using your micro SDX, you were 5 and 9, but I've got a very high noise floor on 60 metres. As I say, not as high as 40, but it is quite high. But you was breaking that noise floor. You were 5 and 9 to me. Yeah, the modulation on yours didn't sound as good as others that I've listened to. But, you know, given the distance, 3-4 watts from that little radio, you know, you're making the journey from Nuneaton to Sidcup in Kent, absolutely no problems. I mean, I could, so long as there was no QSB, I could quite happily have a QSO with you. I'm using the IC-7300, and I used the noise reduction, you know, the digital IF filtering, and I just switched that on, and your voice become a lot lot clearer. But of course, that's cheating my end. But when I didn't, when you first come up, I thought, hello, you've got a problem there, mate. And then you said what radio you're using. I thought, well, that makes sense, you know. As I say, for the money you've paid, the very fact that you're on air and talking to me is quite remarkable. And I think it was a great experiment. So back to you there, Gerald. G4AXPM0 JCF possibly back on your old radio.
Yeah, absolutely right. M0 JCF G4AXP on the back on the DX10. And thanks for that. Just that little trial. I say it is communications quality, but just about. I mean, back in the day, I'd made many rigs back in the day, particularly in the days of valves, which sounded a damn sight worse than that little USDX. And that was on the internal battery, which I say I've never charged up. I've had the thing about 5 or 6 months. I've never even charged the battery yet. Seems to last forever, and you know how small it is. You can almost fit it in your shirt pocket. So it just goes to show 4 watts when the band condition's quite active. It does the job. So thanks for giving me that report. And okay on all the radios, yeah. I've just seen 2 more here that I like. Well, no, 3 more. Sorry, no, is it 2 or 3? No, 2. The Swan radio. I've got a cousin of the Swan radio. I don't have many sets here. I've got nothing compared with you. But I've got the Atlas 180, which I bought new in the 1970s. Used to be my mobile rig, the old Atlas 180, which is it was part of the Swan stable in a way, although it had split off into a different organisation. And of course, I also see the TS520. Well, I had one of those. For quite a long time when I lived in Australia. That was my radio set, the 520. I wish I'd still got it. It was robust. It's very much like the FT101. But I do have an FT101 Echo E, just like you. I bought it about 45 years ago. And it stood the test of time. And I still use it from time to time. I wouldn't part with it for the world. Cosmetically, it looks great. I had problems with it, though. It was left unused for a lot of years. We'd moved overseas. It was about the only thing I saved out of my ham radio days. I saved the 101 and I sort of left it round at my parents' house, just in case I might ever need it one day. Well, in the first time they passed on, but I did manage to track my radio down the 101, so I put it back into operation. But I had problems with it, having been left for so long. You'll know what the problems that I had were. But in all that, with exploding regulator capacitors and fires in the PA compartment, I had to replace the mains transformer. And then about a year later, I had more troubles and I had to replace the mains transformer again. And they were getting as rare as hen's teeth, as are the PA tubes. Something else I saw on here which sparked an interest. I think it was the micro Bitex, so I can't see it now. No, I can't see it, but I did see it somewhere. or saw mention of it. And I made a micro Bitex, when would it be, about sort of 6 or 7 years ago now. And that was a bit of fun. There's a picture of it on my QRZ page. And for what it was, and for how it performed, it was really good. But I did have the driver transistor go south on me on the micro Bitex, which of course is a surface-mounted device, which is a bit difficult to replace. I managed to replace it with a standard leaded device. Just managed to get it in. But whether my Bitex still works or not, Mark, I don't know. What else did you mention to me? There's something else that I was going to comment on. I can't remember what it was now. But yeah, great to see all this stuff. I mean, you know, this is what makes a QRZ.com page interesting. And oh boy, you had so much more stuff than I've ever had. I think I could count on one hand the amount of commercially made radio sets I've had. I had the Heathkit HW101 back in the late 70s, but prior to that it was all home-built AM stuff. Which I must admit I wish I still had now. But I don't know whatever happened to that. What else you got to say? Homebrew 500 milliwatt AM transmitter for top band. The top band, you know, sort of around the local community and around your local town. I think you said you're part of the Cray Valley group. You know, it used to be great on top band, running sort of fairly low power back in the days. Particularly for sort of Sunday morning natters and that sort of thing. It's just amazing just how well you could do with about half a watt. Of course, even in the days when you used valves, the licensing conditions didn't allow you to run more than 10 watts, and by the time you took the efficiency of a valve PA stage into account, you were probably running about 5 watts into the aerial. But yeah, really love your stuff, Mark. M0 JCF G4AXP.
Yeah, G4AXP M0 JCF. Well, thanks for the compliments. Yeah, as I say, I've got to update it. Yeah, the BITX. Yeah, I had the version 6. Never really got on with it. One of the club members bought it from me earlier this year, funnily enough. But yeah, it was a bit of a quirky old thing. He's got a new version of it out now, hasn't he? And yeah, I'm not going to buy any more like that. Your one, the BITX, I've just checked out your QRZ page when you said, you know, I'll be able to see it. Yeah, that's the 40 meter band version one, isn't it? I've known a few people to use them. I've never seen one in the flesh, but I know a few people that have built them, and couldn't really comment above and beyond, other than I know people that have built them. Not too sure that I've actually talked to anyone using it. I mean, my one, I really only used mine on 10 meters and 40 meters. I had a couple of QSOs, but there was just something about it that didn't float my boat. But you know, once again, a lot of radio for your money. Yeah, the Swan, yeah, that Swan 350, do you know what, I bought that probably 5 years ago or more, and it's just sat there. I needed to build a power supply for it, and here's an interesting one of the club members, Cray Valley members, gave me an FT101E transformer. So you're saying about them being rare. Well, I'm about to use mine to build the power supply for the Swan, but it'll be modular in as much as, you know, it's going to be in its own box. So if ever I need a transformer for a 101, then I've got it. But to be honest, I think I'm going to be moving me 101E on at some point. I was using it today. You're quite right, the valves are hard to come by, and mine have just been replaced last week. G0 UKN Guy of Cray Valley, he replaced them both for me, because my one went into thermal runaway, the fan had failed, and the collector current skyrocketed, power dropped off, and before I realised what was happening, yeah, I'd killed both the valves, so they've been replaced. So rather than kill any more, I'll probably move them on, or do a conversion to 6146s, because that can be done. But we'll see. I'm in no rush at the moment. Yeah, the 520S, yeah, I've had 3 or 4 of those. I really like them. And the one that I got rid of, the final one that I got rid of, you know, when you have that regret, I wish I hadn't got rid of it, but another one will come my way. And in fact, the Yaesu 101E is almost like its a cousin, isn't it, from the other stable. So, you know, if anyone wanted to swap a 101E for a 520S, you know, I'd be in mind to do that. I'm more of a Kenwood man than I am a Yaesu man, to be very honest with you. He says talking to you with an icon, and but you know, yeah, the homebrew stuff, I mean, I've got lots of stuff that I really haven't finished yet, and I should get on and do it. Like, I've got a Whisper. I've got the Whisper from QRP Labs. I've got their Ultimate 3S, and with all the bands, I'm building the filters right down to 137 kilohertz just for propagation, you know. I just want to like set it up, leave it running, and see what happens, especially low down. A top band, well, you know, I still use the Kodar AT5, and it's a fantastic radio, you know, for an AM transmitter for a local net. You know, it puts out about 6 watts maybe, and I can see my own signal on the Derby SDR, top band SDR. So you know, between us, the Cray Valley Radio Society, we run a top band net once a month. It's the first Monday of the month. It's on 1.905, and we start off on LSB, and then we move on to AM, and that's when all the old rubbish comes out of the junk boxes and that, the Kodar AT5s, etc. And yeah, I use the Kodar AT5 for the AM section. A lot of fun. I use various old receivers as well in combination, and that's how I killed my last AR-88. You know, even though they've got the position, there's a standby position that you can use when you're using it in conjunction with a transmitter, and everyone says don't use the standby position because you'll kill the output transformer. So I used the standby position, and it worked quite well for many nets. And then one evening I switched from standby back to receive, and it was quiet, it was dead. And so yeah, I've got 2 of them, and I'm going to make a good one out of the 2 of them. The other AR-88 will just be a spares rig. In fact, I've already offered it up to people at the club and said, you know, if you want a project, it's going to be missing some parts, but here's an AR-88. So I love the old boat anchor radios. You know what, Gerald, I actually failed the RAE in 1978, and had I passed it, I was very interested in HF. I probably would have been a fellow G4, but you know, I was a stroppy schoolboy teenager in 1978, and I decided that a piracy might be the cheaper and less stiff upper lipped option, you know. Back then, when, you know, amateur radio was a City and Guilds exam, and it was very highly thought of, you know, so I'm afraid I went down the dark route for a while. And it wasn't until around about 2016 I rediscovered amateur radio. Now, I've not been out of it. I stayed with it, you know, building radios, mucking about, but you know, other things in life got in the way. I was a keen bass guitarist and singer in bands, raced motorcycles right up until fairly recently. I was drag racing motorcycles, and I just got back into the radio, and I realised at that point, you know, there was this triple layer system for the license. Well, completely different from when I was a schoolboy, when it was 2 written exams, sitting guilds, written exams. And of course, I had the knowledge. I had the knowledge through work. I had the knowledge through just gaining knowledge, and I was that much more older and mature. So I just raced through the licenses until I got me a full license. And of course, I didn't have to learn any Morse. And that brings me another thing. I'm about to build a 40 meter band CW valve transmitter. I've got lots of old gear, loads of old valves and transformers and that, and I thought I'm just gonna build one. Why not? You know, it's there, and I'm gonna sort of start learning CW again, and just get the speed back up, I don't know, to like 8, 9, 10 words per minute. I'm not going to keep up with the fast boys. I'm just going to CQ at a very low rate. Hopefully people will realise, and just go from there. But I want to do it all with homebrew equipment and homebrew receivers and that. Coming back to the Code R85 as well, I've got 2 of them at the moment. On one of them, I actually want to convert for the 60 meter band. I've got the instructions. Apparently it's quite a useful modification. So the second one, which needs work anyway, I thought, oh hell with it, I'll just convert it to 60 meters and use it on the 60 meters on 5.317, and I'll just use it there, you know, for a bit of fun. And I do actually have the T28 receiver as well, which they were rubbish when they were new, and my one was rubbish when I bought it, and it's packed up now. I'm not sure if the IF module's gone, but it's gone a bit quiet. So another one on the pile of things to do. A G4AXP M0 JCF.
Yeah. You certainly got no shortage of things to do, have you? That's for sure. With all that lot. Yes, I remember the T28 as well, and I think it used Mullard IF modules. I used to work for Mullard. Not that I can remember the Mullard IF modules, but it you know, sort of kind of rings a bell. I can picture the T28, great stuff. It was so fundamental back in the day, but it worked so well. And yeah, you want to try that on 60 meters. I occasionally go on 5.317. But alas, I don't have a functional AM transmitter. All I have got is my Hermes Light SDR radio, which does an extremely good job on AM. Unlike many of these sort of transceivers, like the Aces and the Icoms, they do have AM functionality, but it just sounds a little bit shabby. But the Hermes Light produces absolutely superb AM. I quite often go on 5371.5. But I was going to make an AM transmitter, 5371.5. I'm trying to procure the bits these days. You couldn't believe how difficult it is. I mean, I probably didn't have quite so much junk as you, but I did have plenty of junk back in the day. When we sold up and moved overseas, it all went in a skip. I had a skip delivered back then, but there's nothing you could do with it. It is before the days that eBay was a good selling tool, so I ditched the lot in a skip. Never thought it'd see the light of day again, but I didn't realise just how valuable it would all become. you know, even trying to get a decent 250, 0250 mains tranny or 350, 0350, even trying to get an LF choke for the, you know, for the power unit. Just pretty much it's not a hopeless task, but the sort of money people are asking for second-hand junk is just crazy. But I am going to build an AM transmitter for this band. I've got all the bits together. Just wait to get the wherewithal to make a start. So I've got a 5763, which is going to go in. So yeah, that's a project that I've been sort of thinking about for the last 2.5 years, and the bits are in a box, but it's gone no further, Mark. Oh, you mentioned those mains transformers. Well, both times I had to send to the United States for a mains transformer. It wasn't cheap, and of course you can imagine shipping and handling was expensive. You know, the import duty and then the VAT on top. You could have bought an FT101 for that price back in the day. And I had it all over again. I had another burn up in the PA stage. One of the 6JS6Cs went internally short. Next thing I knew, I was talking to somebody and there were flames going out of the PA compartment. And lost the transformer again. So I tell you what, it was more difficult to do the second time round than when I first changed it. As if that wasn't a difficult enough job. I mean, a nightmare of a job. One of the big problems is, you know, like on that main transformer, it sits in a very, very tight enclosure. So you don't have a lot of room to work. You've virtually got to strip the radio down. It's like disassembling a chieftain tank. To get the transformer out, and then there's no tag strips. They're all flying leads that come out at various parts of the winding, and they're not marked. And most of the leads are the same colour. So lots and lots of pictures with the iPhone, and doing my best to mark up the leads with little tags, which hopefully would make some sense at the end of the day. But anyway, that side managed to do it. I managed to do it twice. I don't think the 6146s are a particularly good option. Yes, they are an option. Of course, you've got to change the valve bases. There's other work to do. Some of the components needs to be changed, and you've got the old issue with the neutralizing. I was very lucky. I managed to get a pair of original Toshiba green stripes. I think I paid about 26 quid. But it was about a decade ago, not long after we came back here from down under, and I'd had the idea of getting the 101 out of its hibernation, and I just happened to have a look to see how much those tubes were, and I was absolutely shocked, because they used to be 7 shillings and sixpence. But you'd need a second mortgage now to get a pair. And of course, they're Tom, Dick and Harry manufacturers, aren't they? RCA, Sylvania, and all sorts of rubbish in makes. But the 101 was spec'd for the Toshiba 6JS6s, or the NEC brand. And of course, both those tubes were essentially line output valves for Japanese colour tellies. That's why they were so cheap and so available. But my God, you try. In fact, I think one of these days I might just take the tubes out of my 101 Echo, sell them on eBay, and go on holiday for a couple of weeks. M0JCF G4AXP.
Yeah, that made me laugh, that you quoting pound, shillings and pence. But do you know, back then, when you could buy those valves, Gerald, for pound, shillings and pence, or not even the pounds, was it, shillings and pence, back then a germanium transistor would cost you the same amount, wouldn't it, or more? You know, so it's, you know, it's come round full circle, hasn't it? You know, and then, because I remember as a kid in the 70s, you know, you're talking about working for Mullard, OC 44s, 45s, OC 70, 71, 72, OC 84D, you know, all them old transistors. You know, you could buy them 4 pennies. I used to go to a shop in Deptford, southeast London, to buy all my old gear. A lot of government surplus stuff and that, but the new stuff was all germanium transistors. Pardon me, I've got hiccups now. Anyway, you know, back then, now to bear in mind in 1974, you know, 10p for a transistor was a lot of money for a schoolboy of like 10, 11 years old. But, you know, now, you know, the OC-74, one with good HFE and hasn't whiskered inside and all the rest of it, you know, new old stock, you know, they want pounds for those, when you think that way back in the day you could buy dozens of them for £1, you know. And same with germanium transistors. You can get modern germanium transistors, but if you want proper old school GEX 54, GEX 34 and stuff like that, and the 1N, was it 1N34, something like that, I can't remember now. You know, back then they were cheap. Now the prices of them have gone up. I mean, you can get the modern equivalent germanium transistors, but I'm never sure that the forward voltage drop is the same as the old germanium transistors. Maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just getting old, Gerald, that's what it is. But yeah, you're quite right about the valves. You know, the world in his dog are remanufacturing them, and you never get what it says on the piece of glass, do you? You know, like, it looks the same, it feels the same, it even smells the same, but you know, the construction inside, especially the you know, the cathode side of it, you know, because they're obviously indirectly heated, and you know, you never know if you're getting a decent cathode material, that sort of thing, so you get decent emission. And likewise, you know, you can never trust the thickness of the anodes. You know, are you going to look at it after a 5-minute over and find there's holes burnt in the anodes? And I've seen that happen in certain transmitters in the past, you know, where the anodes are glowing cherry red, and when they've cooled down, you notice these holes in them, especially you know, the steel ones, when you thought they were graphite, and it turns out no, they were just steel, and they've cooked themselves to death. Oh well, yeah, it's all anarchy, and it's the same with motorbikes and that, you know. Motorbikes, you know, when I was a youngster and we was riding Yamahas, Suzuki's, Kawasaki's, all 250s and 350s, all 2-strokes, you know, in the late 70s, early 80s, you know, you could pick them up for like 50 quid and rag it to death, and then swap it with your mate's bike so that you got to ride a different model but the same sort of thing, you know. Now they're north of £5,000 for an half decent one, and they want 3,000 quid for an old ratter that they found in a shed somewhere. You know, it's quite incredible, and nostalgia drives it, doesn't it? That's the thing. It's nostalgia and stuff like that, you know, that has driven a lot of things beyond the reach of some of us, you know. I'd love to have some more old motorbikes in the garage, but not at those prices. Nostalgia doesn't get me that strong. And what was the other thing you mentioned? Shipping. Yeah, you know, shipping in the USA or from the USA is incredible. Luckily, I've got friends that live in Florida, and my wife and I go there occasionally. And what I do is, I have anything that I don't really need right now, I have it shipped to my mate in Florida, and then when I go over there, I'll go around and pick it all up and bring it home that way. I find that way you can get away with all sorts of import duty and tax, you know, especially on second-hand gear. You shouldn't be paying import duty and taxes and God knows what else, VAT, on second-hand gear, but you know, they'll get you if you send it through the post. Anyway, I've just seen the time. It's now gone 5 o'clock. Time for me to think about going down and making dinner for myself and my good lovely lady wife. My youngest daughter will be coming home from work soon, no doubt. She'll say, oh, that smells good, and luckily I would have made her some. My oldest daughter, she's out in United Arab Emirates at the moment. She's working over there, so I don't have her knocking on the door and saying that smells good, Dad. But yeah, we've been at it for 45 minutes. I heard you CQing. I thought, why not? Let's have a ragchew, and it was very well executed. I think we've put in a good 45 minutes there of chewing the fat. But yeah, I suppose I better switch it all off and go and do the husbandly duties. So I wish you very good wishes there, Gerald. Thanks for taking me on board today. And no doubt there's a queue of people that are earwigging as they do on 60 metres, and you're bound to get someone else jump in to take it all to shreds, as is always the case. It always makes me laugh. But I won't be earwigging, don't worry about that. If I don't speak to you beforehand, have a happy Christmas if that's your bag, if that's what you celebrate. Otherwise, happy holidays and everything else in between. And I'll catch up with you, I'm sure, in the year 2026, all bright and breezy, and we'll do it again. You'll quite often find me on 10 metres as well, Gerald. 10 metres, 12 metres, while conditions are good. And now we've gone over the plateau of cycle 25. Now we're coming down the other side. Conditions are just starting to drop off now. It's not as reliable, say, to the USA or to Indonesia as it was this time last year. But the sun has been playing up with quite a lot of hissy fits just lately. But once we come down the other side, and I'm bored with the 10 and 12 metres for just sporadic E, I'll probably be back on the lower bands more often, so you'll probably find me CQing as well on 60, 80 and 40 metres. And of course, if I got me transmitters going, my homebrew transmitters on 40 metres, possibly CW, but very, very slowly. I'll hand it over to you for a final, Gerald. I'll let you have your frequency back, and thanks again for this wonderful chat. I really have enjoyed it. G4AXP M0 JCF listening and wishing you 73. Good luck, old chap.
Yeah, okay, I think that was John there. G4AXP. Yes, okay, okay, Mark, I'm gonna have to toddle off soon. Again, on all the things you mentioned, too much to come back on in a short period of time. But one thing that crossed my mind was, you know, going back to the days of the early germanium products, the OC-45s, and of course the germanium diodes. And the game changer, one of the first silicon diodes that came along, the Bravo Yankee 100, which really changed the shape and became the forerunner of things to come, where you could build a power unit with no longer to use a rectifying valve. But I was going to say, there is a good, I don't know, I've often thought if these 6AS6Cs pack in, I would replace them with a PL509 or an Echo Lima 509, the 6-volt work version. They were the principal line output valves in British colour tellies. And they used to be 10 a penny. They're a damn sight cheaper than buying 6AS6Cs. And I got a batch of them here. I bought a batch of them that are still going cheap on eBay about 5 or 6 years ago, and they were in Germany. So I haven't got much stuff here, but I've got a healthy supply of PL509s. the final thing is, so many times I've come back from the United States. I used to go over there regularly on business and cooked it many times on holidays and stuff. But I tell you, every time I've returned, the case gets opened up by Homeland Security, and there's always a card in there to explain why they opened the case. So there we are. They're quite suspicious when they see that sort of stuff in the bag. So, it shows up on the radar, obviously. But I've never had anything confiscated, which is a good thing. Okay, cheerio to you then, Mark. Thanks so much for this nice natter this afternoon. Thanks for calling. And I've enjoyed the chin wag. You enjoy the evening. Hey, look, it's a bit early to wish you Merry Christmas, but I won't do it anyway. And look forward to the next one with you. And I'll say cheers. I'm just going to listen for John before I disappear as well. John may have a message for you, I don't know. MM0GGI-G4AXP.
I'll just find out if Mark can hear me, and I'll have a brief over with him before he disappears. M0JCF, MM0GGI, any copy over?
Yeah, MM0GGI, I think it's Golf India, and Mike 0, Juliet, Charlie Foxtrot. Yeah, a little bit quiet to me, John. Signal 9, readability is, I'd say readability 5, but on your calling, you was a little bit quieter, so I suspect a tiny bit of QSB between us. But yeah, I'll give you a 5 and 9, no problem, John. Back to you.
I only wanted to say that I was quite impressed with all the old gear you've got there. I've been listening for quite a while, actually, short-wave listening as you do. And yes, very, very interesting. And of course, also talking about the old times with the transistors. All very interesting stuff. I've never been very technically competent with the construct. I've been going since 1983. But anyway, nice to meet you, I think, for the first time. I'm right up in the northwest Highlands of Scotland here, Mark. But extremely interesting to listen to all your talk about the old stuff, Mark. I won't hold you up, but enjoy your evening meal. And I think you've got to cook it. I've got to do the same as well. M0JCF, Mike 0, Golf India in the northwest Highlands, over.
Yeah, Mike 0, Golf India, Mike 0, Juliet, Charlie Foxtrot. No problem, John. I'll give everyone the time of day. You're good enough to call in and ask for a report and have a quick chat. Yeah, I'll always do that. Unless I'm actually being dragged out by my ear, then it's no problem. You picked up a little bit as well. There is QSB, 5 and 9 plus 5. And 5 and 9 plus 5, you was as loud and as clear as Gerald, But when it's on 5 and 9, you're just above my 60-metre band noise floor, and it could get marginal. If it drops slightly, I'd start to struggle with a readability 4, but a signal of 8, which is quite incredible. But just so you know, for your logbook, John, I'm using a random long wire. It's about 90 feet long and only about 20-25 feet above the ground, going into a 9-to-1 unund and a long length of coax. I think it's RG, I can't remember if this is Ultraflex 7 or RG213. It's one or the other, but it comes up into my loft where I'm using an IC-7300 today, rather than one of the old pieces of rubbish in my garage. Yeah, I'm using something quite nice, hence it's in the loft and it's not in the damp old garage. But yeah, great to get you in the logbook. I'll log you in QRZ. We'll have a chat another time. And interestingly, I've got a friend I used to drag weight race with. He lives near King's Lynn in Norfolk, and he's just taking his foundation license. He'll be taking it in the next week or so. He's bought himself an FT 757 GX, and I keep sending him videos and snippets conversations, and I'm saying, look, you know, all you need is a piece of wire and an old radio, and you too can talk to people in Scotland, Wales, Ireland, Scandinavia, and that on your like 40 meters, 80 meters. You know, don't worry about the 10-meter band and doing DX and that. If you just want a ragchew, 40 meters, 60 meters, which obviously you can't use, 80 meters, etc. You know, is the place to be. So I'll be sure to point him in your direction when he gets his M7 in the next week or so. But anyway, great to talk to you. Happy Christmas to you as well up there in the northwest of Scotland, and hopefully it's not going to be too cold and windy up there, but it's freezing down here. We just haven't got the wind, but I know what it could be like up that way. Anyway, I'm rambling on and I should be dipping out of the loft. MM0 GGI M0 JCF. Cheers mate, 73, happy Christmas.
Okay, many thanks there, Mark. Yeah, I didn't give you a report, did I? 029. Yeah, you were, when you were in conversation with Gerald, you were solid 59.9 plus. The band is changing a bit now. You're still beating 5.9, but there is a little bit of QSP creeping in. Anyway, I'm so thank you. Thanks for answering me there. Appreciate that, Mark, and we'll catch up with you further down, and I'll have a quick word with Gerald if he's still there. M0 JCF, M0 GGI. All the best there, Mark.
Yeah, cheers mate, you take care, good luck, and hand you over to Gerald now. Gerald, over to you to speak to John. M0 JCF is now clear and down.
Yeah, 73 Mark, I don't know if you're still there, Gerald. You're very QS5 for the XYL. M0 GGI, listen.